I want to give some credit here where credit is due. Like, Julianne is the reason. We could blame her if we want to, but Julianne is the reason that like we're on this today, that we're here. She is the initial connective thread between Michael and I. Like, Michael and I kind of had this like passing, we got these ideas, and Julianne sat us both down and went, no, this is the direction. You guys need to go this way. This would work really well for you guys. I can see this for you. And like painted the picture for us. And she basically put us in that room together. We were in a bigger room. We were in kind of an orbit, but Julianne was one of those people that brought us together with absolutely no reason to benefit for her. Like, she saw this in that perspective of there's some chemistry there. There's a thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's going to develop, but there's a thing you guys need to work on. And she did it with no thought of benefit for herself. Anthony just talked about that. He put this huge project in Southern Colorado together, which is going to be an absolute mammoth of a project with no benefit. He just like, yeah, I'll connect you with this guy because I know this guy and it just makes sense to connect you. That's what Steve does all the time. We see him doing that all the time. And I want to point that out as Julianne is an example of it.
Well, I'm gonna just bring her on stage right this second, dude. Enough with you and your mug. I'm with her anyway, to be totally honest with you. Welcome, Julianne. How are you? Ladies and gentlemen, Julianne Meyer, welcome to Total Disruption. It's great to have you back.
Thanks for having me. And Jake, that was very kind of you to say. So I'm happy to be here.
All right. Well, I am kicking Jake out of here. As much as we love Jake, or Jake should kick himself out of here. Bye. So for the world to know, Julianne, welcome. So Julianne is the Chief Strategy Officer, VP of Programming and Host Affairs at E360 TV. Let's talk today about media. Let's talk about how to stand out in a crowded marketplace. And what does that even mean, right? We're in media, you're in media, you're really in media, we're kind of in media, and we're trying to stand out. Let's talk about trends. What's happening in media right now? What should business owners pay attention to? Let's go down that road, or go down whatever road you want. Really, you're the expert.
So obviously I work in streaming television, and so I have an affinity for that, but it's not necessarily the option for everyone. But the thing is if you want to stand out, you have to stand out. You can't just sit on your couch and do nothing and hope and pray and guess and all of these things. Like, you have to put your energies into something. And for me, it was just an easy, I can do this. I can do, thank you, Jake. I can do TV. I'm not really good at social media, but I'm really good at streaming television. And so I started focusing on that. And, you know, and I'm never going to put down podcasts because they are a huge deal, but how do you stand out in a crowded market? Everybody and their dog has a podcast. How do you stand out if you have one? Well, first of all, you have to be consistent. And it's the same thing with social media. It's the same thing with streaming television. Whatever you do, you have got to be consistent. And I heard somebody say the other day, and I thought it was brilliant, was her business changed. She stopped searching for clients when she became consistent doing something. And her medium is social media. She said it was her way of telling people business is open. And as soon as she started doing something consistently, then all of a sudden it wasn't, oh my gosh, where's my next client coming from? They were just like, oh, you're here. I want you. And so I think number one thing is you have to literally pick something. Now, the beautiful thing about streaming television is it's kind of like it's the step between a podcast and, say, Netflix. So you automatically have this built-in audience that you start with, and you can build from there. So automatically you are leaps and bounds ahead of somebody who's starting a podcast or social media or any of the other typical ways, even email marketing. I'm not saying they don't work, because they obviously do. I'm just saying if you can still stay consistent, why not give yourself a leg up? So this is the way that trends seem to be going. The one thing I do want to mention, though, is that there's this idea, and I've been I don't know. I would say I've bought into it a lot too, is we're a microwave society and we want it right now. And there's a lot of truth to that, but there is still a market for long form, which is what television is. So, you get the best of both worlds. It's an easier barrier of entry for bigger results. So that's really what I wanted to point out, was this idea of whatever it is that you do decide to choose, you have got to go for it. You can't just dip your toe in the water. You've got to go for it. You've got to just really make it happen.
Wow. That's a lot. Okay. I am trying to make it happen. Thank you. And I appreciate your push there. So I agree. I'm not the biggest social media person either, but I really found my passion, and so is Jake, in TV. I love it. I love the flow of it. Audio version is podcasting, except the only other element is if you're actually going to do TV, there's the whole look and lighting and all that stuff. When you're on TV, it's just a little bit different than when you're just videoing a podcast. It's totally different. It has a different feel, and it brings a different element to the magic of the show, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone knows you're on TV. And I really think that's important for people out there who are trying to stand out in 2025, right? And what are the things that people must do, right? So let's say I want to be on TV. I want to stand out in 25. What am I do? Tell me. I mean, you give us all this wisdom. You make everything seem so easy. You're like, oh, it's just this, it's just that. Meanwhile, Mount Everest, right? I'm like, got a pickaxe out. There's ice falling in my face. Here's Julianne, sweet as can be.
Sweet as can be. It's surprising how many people are intimidated by me. But I will say this. There are a few things that you want to consider. And obviously, like you said, TV comes naturally for me. It's one of those things I haven't really had to struggle very hard with. But with anything worth having, anything of quality, you've got to put the work in. Now, with streaming television in particular, I'd say the first 3 months of your show going live is really the crunch time where you're like, oh my gosh, am I doing this right? And this is when all the huge before, but the learning curve is in those first 3 months. And then you get to the next stage and then you can get going. But some of the things that I think are really, no matter what it is that you decide you're going to do for yourself to differentiate yourself, you need to be consistent in everything. What I'm talking about is the way things look. What's your branding? How are you coming across? Do people know it when they see it? Like, back when I had my show, Own Your Wellness, everybody knew when they heard the word, they knew the song to my show. They also knew my tagline, which is there's more to health and wellness than broccoli and burpees. Anybody who heard that line knew that was me. Anybody who, it was just one of those things where Sally Jesse Raphael with her red glasses, you, Mike, with your Total Disruption shirt. These are things that people come to look for. Exactly. That's branding. That is you're showing up for yourself and being authentic to who you are. Now, I think too, there's a lot of people out there that try and mimic other people. There is systems, but you've got to figure out yours. You take whatever somebody else is doing and make it your own. I think part of the reason why I've been successful in what I do is I don't want a bunch of mini me's. I don't want that. I want you, Mike, you, Jake, and whoever it is I'm working with to really be your best you and just show yourself. It takes courage to actually be real and actually tell those stories. I think it was Melissa was saying, like, this guy was talking about how he killed him or tried to kill himself. And, that's what led to the Olympics. And it's like, whenever you can show that vulnerability and really be able to share a bit about who you really are and do it without people feeling sorry for you, because that's the key. You don't want anybody to feel sorry for you and feel like they have to save you, because that does not translate to anything really good. So those are the two top ones, but also, be very strategic about who it is that you put yourself in front of. Every opportunity that's good is not necessarily good for you. Don't waste your time on something unless that you can see where this can grow and go somewhere big and better. Now, I wish that I'd been able to be on comments when Anthony Perez was talking, because it really brought out this idea of, and it's something that is visceral. It's it's this idea of you give, but you don't necessarily expect it back from the place that you gave it to. It will always come back somewhere, somehow, some way, but it's usually not the person that you're giving to. So as soon as you can let go of that and just show up, then all of a sudden things start flowing to you in a much more authentic, genuine way. So that's basically my answer. I just really think that, you know, being who you are, having that brand and the consistency, and just letting go of it having to look a certain way, you're going to go farther than you could ever imagine.
Well, that's really powerful stuff. Thank you for that. I feel like people don't have that patience, and they rush and push, and they just get themselves in front of everybody. And what we're finding out is, you and I were having a conversation a while back, you know, sometimes you're not only in the wrong room, you have to be the room, and you have to hold yourself in that headspace that, okay, I'm going to go be the room. I'm not in a room. I'm going to be the room. And with media and it's awesome that our partners from the LA Tribune are jumping in. It's really great. Thank you guys. Speaking of media giants, right? These guys around the world are just fantastic human beings, and what a great organization. But with this in mind, can you walk me through some pitfalls and things to try to avoid outside of just what you said? Is there any other, you're pretty comprehensive about be careful who you put yourself in front of. There's got to be more to it, right? So if you can take a second and dive a little deeper for those that are, because this media is really important, right? Getting messaging out there is very, very important. So let's talk about that. Just what are things to avoid besides the big point you already brought up?
Yeah, that is a huge point. That really is. But here's the thing, entrepreneurs cannot be followers, and you can't have it both ways. So you still, even though you might take somebody's idea, you really have to go for it yourself. And ultimately, we were talking about, I know it was Steve Ramona who was talking about listening. And you really do have to listen to that inner voice, that inner knowing, instinct and intuition. And you're not always going to be right. So if you're too afraid to be wrong, then you're never going to hit it big, because you're too afraid to make a decision that would lead to the right thing. It's okay to not be right all the time. And in fact, that's how you get to success. We have this really weird sort of idea that success goes like this and businesses go like this. No, the quickest way is not necessarily the straight line. It's usually, you're going back and forward and all around. And that's how you get to your goal line, is because you don't see what the problems are going to be or what the issues are going to be until they're upon you. And then you have to figure out if you're going to go back and start and grab the tool, if you're going to go around, if you're going to jump over, how you're going to get to that next, so that you can keep going towards your goal. So ultimately you have to decide, and this goes back to that it was Chris Felton who was talking about clarity and how it's all overused. It really is, but there has to be a clear idea of what you're trying to focus on. And anything that doesn't align with that, don't do it. It has to match up somehow. It doesn't have to look the way that you expect it to, but it has to match up. So for example, me helping people with streaming television, that's what I do. But my purpose is I'm living my legacy by helping others live theirs. And if that doesn't align with that statement, I don't do it. Period.
That's awesome. I mean, do you remember what you just said? I'm living my legacy by helping other people live theirs. I am stealing that, and I am overusing it. The same with that other word that Jay came up with earlier. And then I'm evangelizing it. I'm actually stealing all kinds of things today. It's been a great experience for me. I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that's powerful. Jeez. How'd you come up with that? Was it just part of the deal?
Honestly, somebody described me that way to somebody else. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's it in a nutshell. That's exactly what I'm doing with my time in my life. And you've got to think about it in another way too, is you are literally exchanging your life for the things that you choose to do every day. At the end of the day, is it going to be something where you go, I'm so glad I made that money? Or is it, I'm so glad I helped that person? Or is it, I'm so glad I moved the needle forward, or I'm so glad I avoided this? It just depends on what you're going to feel good about at the end of the day, because we can't go anywhere with it. But no matter how much money I've had a lot and I've had none. And the happiest I've been has to do with how I think about things. It had very little to do with money. Money's important next to breathing. It's important. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not trying to make it sound like a bad thing, because I want more of it. It's just energy. But I'm saying, though, that ultimately, how do I feel about the things that I'm doing? How do I feel? How am I spending that money? How am I spending my time? Because I'm literally exchanging my life for it. So is it worth it?
I mean, you just swallowed an amazing pill today. There was all kinds of mic drops. I can't wait to play this back. I mean, it's awesome. So let me ask you something, right? When we talk about media, and a lot of people in media, it's you can be good, right, and extemporaneous at working with a client or a sales call or something like that. Any of the speakers today, if I threw a microphone and a light in their face, they could rock and roll extemporaneously, yourself included. But what is a media plan and a media strategy for those friends that are listening in? We talk about episodes, we talk about ideas, concepts, themes, interviews. I mean, we've heard it all today from others. What is a media strategy exactly? Can you give us in your interpretation of what it is, please?
Yes, absolutely. So I think the biggest mistake that most people make when it comes to media is letting it die on the vine. And they have this idea like, I've been on this podcast, I've done my work, I'm done. No, you are not done. You have not talked about it. You need to talk about it before. You need to talk about it after. You need to keep that conversation going. It's so funny. But that's the number one thing, depending on how you want to use media. Now, if you are going to say have your own TV show, your own podcast, your own lives, some things to keep in mind. And I'm always pushing for that, because even back in the day when there was only radio, everybody sat in front of it and stared at it. Why do you think that is? Because they were like imagining the story in front of their eyes. So now you get to be the story. And the more that you can connect with people with more of their senses, the more that they're going to know, like, and trust you. And I think the biggest mistake that most people make when it comes to doing podcasts or TV shows and things like that is, if you want to have your own podcast or TV show, you need to pick an extremely broad topic so that you yourself do not get pigeonholed or bored. You do not constantly have to talk about everything that you're good at, because people are going to be drawn to you because of who you are. So you need to have your personality come out, and you need to be entertained yourself. If you're not entertained, it's not going to be entertaining. So pick something broad. And another thing that people should think about too is there's a niche for everyone. So if you're into, I don't know, Bitcoin, or you're into, and that's actually a large topic now, but there's always something for somebody there. But maybe you make that part of your show. Maybe you make that just a piece of that. And people, if you're doing your podcast or TV show to grow your business, you don't have to be talking about your business the entire time. In fact, your podcast or TV show doesn't even have to be about your business, as long as, and I'm going back to it again, you're passionate about what it is that you're talking about, because people are going to fall in love with who you are. And then they're going to go internet sleuth and figure out everything there is to know about you and want to work with you when it's right. So as long as you show up, then the odds of you helping somebody and making a difference in their life is so much greater. And I think for those people who are afraid to do it, the biggest thing that I would say is stop making it about you. Stop thinking small, because you're one person. I'm not saying that you're not important. I'm just saying that you're one person. But if you think about it like, I am doing this for that person out there, or that person that I wish I would have found, or the person I needed to hear, then you're showing up for somebody else. And there's that accountability that AP was talking about. You need to be able to show up whether you feel like it or not. And if you're only doing it for you, the odds are you're going to fall down and stop doing it. But if you're doing it for somebody else who's counting on you, whether you know who they are or not, you will show up way more often. So I think, stop making it about you.
Well, I think that's really powerful in the me first society today. I think that's very, very good advice. And I feel like all the successful people that we have, from Chris to you to AP to Steve Ramona, I mean, I just keep everything's about service, 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 service. Everything just driving it in. All of our friends. Not only is that trending right now, it's trending because it's authentic. It's trending because it's the reality, right? You got to give a lot and get a little, and then you'll get a lot. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's somehow in the worker's mentality not enough, because in the society where somebody gets a job, does a task, then they get paid. That's really, you can do your job with a servant's heart. You can do your job with servant leadership. You can do your job with all that stuff, but in this entrepreneurial space, and especially in media, you got to give a lot to get a little, then to get a lot. It
Mhm.
just, I know my own transformation and Jake's transformation, and media gave us the biggest boost we could possibly have. Right? You always said it, and that's my other point that I want to bring up to you is sometimes it takes other people's feedback on
Mhm.
what you're doing. We're constantly asking people, you at the top of the pile, to edit our show, run ideas by you, and you come up with this redefinition of what things are, what it means. It is really powerful, and it does take 3 months, I would say, right, to
Mhm.
find your voice. It takes 3 months. It does. It's amazing. Nothing's
It
overnight. I don't know. I'm just so happy about it. So I got one final key question for you. What can somebody do to increase their visibility and make this shift and create this credibility? What is that seems to be a theme in media as well on the back, right? No, like, and trust, all that good stuff. What can somebody do? What's an action step or steps?
Well, you know, here's the thing, and I was saying this earlier, if you don't have a little bit of pee running down your leg, you're not dreaming big enough. And it's kind of gross sounding, but it really like leaves a picture. And-
Depends on where you're peeing. If it's in the shower, it's fine. If it's in a pool, it's fine too. It's not really
but if it's in the boardroom, maybe not so much. But my
I
point though
digress.
is that you
Appreciate
have
you
to
guys.
stretch, you have to grow, you have to stretch. You cannot stay exactly where you are and expect to get where you want to go. You have to keep moving forward. And that means that there's going to be those growing pains. They don't call them growing pains for nothing. So, for me, I'm obviously going to say, hey, I think streaming television is where it's at because it has created and opened up doors that you would never even imagine for me, that most people are still waiting for with their podcast. So, you know, just whatever it is that you choose, learn as much as you can, but don't be afraid to try what's in your heart, because your, business battleground that's coming up, you guys came up with that idea. It was brilliant. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else is doing that. So if you've been waiting for somebody else to give you the idea, we'd still be waiting forever. There has to be a first. There has to be a first person. So whatever it is that you're like, okay, let me try this. Don't be afraid to just keep trying until it feels right for you, until you really are starting to get the results that you want. But you have to be really clear about what it is that you're trying to get in return. Are you trying to network with your show? Are you trying to get money from your show directly? Are you trying to bring business back to your business through your show? So get very clear about how it is that you want to use the media, and then don't let it die on the vine, whatever it is, and use and create those relationships so that they're lasting. So we keep on talking about some of the shows that are on my network now are because I interviewed them on my TV show 5 years ago. Now they have their own shows. So don't be afraid to stay in touch and keep those relationships going, because you never know where it's going to lead eventually.
Well, I see Dad coming up, so we must
Dad.
playtime's over, kids. All right, Jake. So sad when our interview time is over. It just, inside I'm a sad clown right now. I may have a smile on my face, But Julianne, thank you so much. What's the best way for the crowd, the audience here, and our viewers to get a hold of you? Where do you want people to go to get more wisdom from you? Right? You have so much to give. You make everything seem so nice and light. It really is in your world. It's awesome. You're awesome. Your message is awesome. Where do people go to get more awesome?
Real quick though, you have to make it fun, even when you don't know what you're doing. If you're not having fun while you're trying to figure it out, something's wrong and you need to pivot somewhere, because it shouldn't be that hard. It should be challenging and kind of like when you're playing a game. But the way people can find me is through e360tv.com. And also my email is julianne@e360tv.com. So those are the two best ways to see what we're up to. Check out Total Disruption. Check out Steve Ramona's show, my show, all those things. But also, yeah, you can email me directly.
Awesome. Well, I go to e360tv.com. It's awesome. Our show lives there. And this is what Jake's so good at. Look at that, man. This dude, you say it, it just appears. The real engine behind the show is Jake Clendenning. I got to be honest with you, everybody. Full transparency. It's all Jake.
Sputters and smokes, and it's inefficient and takes a ton of fuel to operate it. But yeah, it's back there.
Jake's got like 8,000 little people turning wheels back there to power his house. Like crank handlers, all like those old school Viking ships. There's a bunch of people just powering Jake's life right now. Julianne, thank you so much. We love you. You're the best. I suggest everybody go to E360. The saddest part of the show is when you go. We'll see you soon, Julianne.
Thanks.